When Private Ryan needed saving, they didn't send in the clowns. They got Tom Hanks instead. But for real, this story goes hard, and I think it's based on a true story. Not sure though. The movie opens with a family walking slowly and quietly to a cemetery, led by the patriarch of the house with tears in his eyes. When the old man gets to a grave, he breaks down and cries and is immediately surrounded by his family. Then he gets that look in his eyes that tells us he's about to share his story. So now we're on to the main story. On June 6, 1944, the US Army lands on Omaha Beach as part of the Normandy invasion. But they've hardly gotten out of their vessels when the German army sprays them with bullets and all sorts of ammo, clapping many in the process. It's not even been a minute yet and things have already gone south for the US Army. Like these guys are literally dropping like flies and the sea looks more like spaghetti sauce than water. I can't even tell you everything that's going on, so I won't gross you out. But suffice to say that body parts are divorcing their former partners. The entire thing is Armageddon, and one side is clearly winning, but it's definitely not the Americans. Well, that is until Captain Miller, played by Tom Hanks, helps the US Army get their crap together and go after the Germans. It's a slow start in the beginning, but the Americans send a strong message and feel encouraged to do more damage to their enemies. Meanwhile, some of the other US soldiers are saying their last prayers. They might be getting the upper hand now, but that didn't mean that the reality of being clapped out of existence wasn't still hanging over them. So, better safe than sorry, yeah? After the operation had ended, the Department of War received a word from the battlefront. Like some kind of jinx, 3 of 4 Ryan brothers have been smoked in different locations, each in battle. But the tragedy to end all tragedies is that their mother is going to receive telegrams of all these catastrophes in one day. The only surviving Ryan brother, the youngest, Private James Ryan, just landed at Normandy the night before the invasion and no one knows where he is. 3 sons clapped and 1 son missing. How much can a woman take in one day? I'd like to find out. Over at the office of General George C. Marshall, the US Chief of Army Staff, there's some back and forth about whether to send a rescue mission to recover Private Ryan. The general thinks it should be done, but one of his officers thinks it's not a great idea, as more men would have to be put in danger during the process. In the end, the general's word is law, and so Captain Miller is assigned the task. Captain Miller grabs together a bunch of guys to form his team. The other guys in the company who were not selected, however, would be folded to Baxter, whatever that means. As they all begin to make their way to Newville to find Private Ryan, their discussions reveal that not all of them think it makes sense that they should all put their lives at risk for one man. The argument of the sufferings of Mrs. Ryan is not enough. After all, they all have mothers. The group does have good camaraderie though, and they seem both in awe and in love with their captain. Their idea of small talk is not exactly charming, but that's the thing about war. It turns everything on its head, including camaraderie. When they get to Newville, they begin their search for Private Ryan, but the troop they meet on the ground have no idea where he is. Probably no idea who he even is. As they make their way through the town still on their mission to find Private Ryan, they encounter this German family who begs the troop to take their kids with them. Of course, this is a dumb idea since they are on the move and the warfield is dangerous. So Captain Miller says no. Caparzo, however, is moved in his heart because according to him, the girl looks like his niece. So he retrieves the girl from her parents. Before he can say jack though, he gets shot in the back by a sniper. Rip in peace. Meanwhile, when the girl gets a chance to return to her family, the first thing she does is to give her dad a resounding slap on his face. I don't know why, because she's crying and speaking German, but that was either a slap of relief or a slap of, how dare you, Dad? Losing Caparzo is making Captain Miller's men get a little angry and resentful, but they continue their mission regardless. They soon get to a place in Newville where they find another troop of US soldiers. When Captain Miller asks the commanding officer on ground about Private Ryan, he confirms he has one in his unit and sends for him. Somehow I think this is a mix-up because it's just halfway into the movie and they've already saved Ryan. No way that's possible. Nothing comes this easy. Except for me. Anyway, Captain Miller delivers the news to Ryan and he breaks down and cries. Further conversation though would reveal that they have the wrong Ryan. Same name, James Ryan, but different middle name and different younger brothers. Talk about an oopsie moment. After their false victory, Miller and his men have to pick up and move again. They bunker down for the night at an abandoned church building, which is where Sergeant Horvath picked up on Captain Miller's shaky hands. Miller does not know what it's about, but he says it started when they disembarked from the boat at Omaha Beach, and that it comes and goes. We also get the first hint that Miller is not 100% on board with this mission. Maybe if it didn't involve risking his men's lives, he'd have been more okay with the idea. But right now he's thinking, this Ryan better go home and cure cancer or something, or else this isn't worth it. They soon get some sleep, if you can count 2 hours of sleep as some sleep. When they wake in the morning, they continue their search for Ryan. They stumble on yet another troop who also does not know where Ryan is, but the commanding officer has got his own tale of war. He was piloting one of the fighter jets, which unknown to him had been reinforced with extra steel plates, in a bid to protect a high-ranking officer who was to fly with him. Unfortunately, by the time he found out, it was too late. So even though he did his best, the plane crashed, clapping nearly everyone, including the general they were trying to protect. Captain Miller can't help but notice the parallels between the officer's story and his mission, risking the life of many to save the one. But oh well, they had a mission to attend to. So they start going through the fallen soldiers on the field while a few others start pouring through their different dog tags. As they go through the tags, they do so very publicly and with a cavalier attitude. One of the soldiers on ground comes and scolds them for being defending so irreverent property of their fallen comrades. So they get their acts together. Fortunately for them, they are about to meet someone who's friends with Ryan. This man explains that he, Ryan, and a couple others missed their stop, and then met a colonel who routed some soldiers to go babysit a bridge in Ramel. Finally, they had a solid lead. While Miller is giving orders to move to Ramel, his hands begin to have those tremors again, and this time his men can see it. They are all obviously worried, but nobody says anything. Instead, Miller gives the order and they get moving. On their way, Miller encounters a gun nest and he wants his troop to neutralize it. The men don't exactly like Miller's plan, but he's their commanding officer, so they do as they are told. Unfortunately, one man, Wade the doctor, is shot during the process. They try everything they can and Wade even tries to walk them through the process of saving his life, but nothing they do is enough, and eventually Wade walks into the light. That's 2 down already on this mission to save Private Ryan. Angry and vengeful, the men take it out on a certain surrendered German paratrooper and are very much prepared to clap him, but one of the men doesn't think this is a great idea. He believes that the rule of war concerning prisoners should be adhered to instead. At first, no one cares to listen to him because they are so angry, but eventually they come around when the prisoner tries to curry their favor by showing them how much he loved America. He named all their celebrities, used American lingo, and even sang the American anthem. Miraculously, it seems to have done the trick. Miller grabs him by the collar and blindfolds him. He then instructs him to walk 1,000 steps, after which he can take off his blindfold and surrender himself to the first Allied patrol he comes across. One of the men is not having it though. He refuses to believe that it's okay to let the prisoner go after what the German troops did to Wade, and so he decides to walk out on the mission. The resulting drama has got the men fighting amongst themselves, so Miller decides to get his troop back together by revealing the story about his past. Before now, the soldiers had all placed bets on who would be the first to find out Miller's past. No one knew anything about their commanding officer and what he did before he became an army officer, and Miller wouldn't say anything about it. But today he would reveal to them that he used to be a school teacher and a baseball coach before he became a soldier. He explains that before now, most people would have easily guessed what profession he was into. However, now that he's a soldier, no one could look at him and even guess that he used to teach. He fears that he's changed too much, maybe even too much for his own wife to still be able to recognize him. He ends his speech by telling Rabin that he could quit the mission if he wanted, but as for him, each man he had to kill only made him feel further away from home. Of course, Rabin rejoins the troop. After such a speech, anyone who'd walk out still would just be a monster. When they get to Ramel, Miller meets a detachment of soldiers. Finally, Ryan, the right Ryan, is amongst them. Oh, he's Matt Damon. Very cool. When Miller informs Ryan about his brothers, he's shaken to his core, of course. But when Miller tells him that he is to be airlifted and taken back home, his answer is a strong no. He doesn't feel okay abandoning his post and going home while the rest of his team remain at the battlefront fighting. He says his fellow soldiers are the only brothers he has left, so he's not going to desert them. He's going to remain at his post and if possible go on to whatever version of afterlife he believes in from there. Captain Miller is at a crossroads here, but Sergeant Horvath believes that by some miracle, they might be able to stay back with Ryan's troop and make it out of there. Miller goes with the idea and assumes the rank of commanding officer. The troop then prepares itself for an incoming German siege. As the troop awaits the day of battle, they get together to share stories. Captain Miller and Ryan are off to the side, also talking and exchanging stories. Suddenly, one of the sentries picks up on incoming enemy troops approaching. It's time for battle. When the German troops arrive, they come with an armored tank, ready to obliterate anything in its path. The US troops put up a good fight regardless, with their sticky bombs and their machine guns. They might not be as equipped as the German troops, but they sure are quite nifty. Both sides lose a good number of men. Honestly, you just stop keeping track after a while. It's all carnage and mayhem at this point. Soon, another 3 of the original soldiers for the mission to save Ryan are clapped. Jackson and the sergeant are shot, while Militia is stabbed. Now it's just the 2 original soldiers left along with Captain Miller and Private Ryan. In the middle of the shootout, we see Willie, the prisoner of war that Miller freed. Guess what? When he sees Miller, he does not have a single care in the world. He opens fire and deals him a mortal wound. Disappointed, one of the men confronts Willie, who attempts to surrender again, but now he's older and wiser. He now knows firsthand the difficult choices soldiers have to make on the battlefield, so he pulls out his gun and claps Willie. By now, the US troops have taken out the German forces, thanks to the airborne tank busters. The German soldiers are left surrendering, and Captain Miller is drawing his final breath. In the presence of Rabin, who is with him till his last breath, Miller instructs Ryan to earn the life he's been given, and the sacrifices that made it possible. We're then taken back to the first scene. We find that the old man was Ryan, and the grave he's at is Captain Miller's grave. Ryan expresses that he still remembers the sacrifice Miller made for him, and that he hopes that, at least in Miller's eyes, he's lived a life worthy of his sacrifice. Moral of the story? War. War never changes.